What's going on, guys? This is Chandler Smith, and in today's video, I'm gonna explain how much money you need to buy your first rental property, and I'm gonna show you what I would do if I had to start all over again. So with all of that being said, let's jump into it. All right, guys, if you're new to the channel, I've been investing in real estate for the last 8 years. I'm currently 31 years old, and I own over $20 million of real estate. And one of the biggest comments I get on my Instagram, which if you want to go follow, you can go check me out. But on my Instagram, TikTok, and here on YouTube is, Chandler, okay, you're a big fish now. It's very easy for you to find deals. It's very easy for you to finance them, for you to get into them, for you to do all of that stuff. But I haven't even bought a rental property yet. I feel like I'm at a disadvantage. And so here's what I'm going to tell you. One thing that I've realized is when you're a big fish or a small fish, both fishes have huge advantages. And in all honesty, you as a smaller fish that's never bought a rental property, you have massive advantages. And I want to help you to understand how to use them. However, I do want to share a story with you. When I was younger, I would go skiing, and I found a little life hack that I would use. I would go up to the ski hill on very icy days because the ski hill I was close to was Grand Targhee. It was pretty pricey to get in. And what I could actually do is on these icy days, which I was fine with, I was still learning, still getting used to it, and it was a bomb hill either way, is I would go down to the bottom of the hill and I would wait for super rich people that had gone and bought their tickets and skied for an hour and were upset because the hill was too icy. And I would approach them as, a 12-year-old kid, and I'd say, hey, I noticed that you're leaving. Are you guys done for the day? And they'd say, yeah, we're calling it a day. The hill sucks. It's icy. And I'd say, really? Well, do you think maybe I could buy your ticket off of you for cheaper? Or if you're not using it, do you think you could hook me up? And the majority of the time they'd say, yeah, here, take mine. We're done for the day. We're calling it a day. And I would get a ski pass. Now, is this potentially against the rules? Maybe. And looking back, you can voice your complaints and your concerns. However, I was able to recognize that me as a very small fish, I could leverage that with these very big fish that didn't care about the price of their ski tickets and were on the way out anyways. And then I could get free skiing for the day. And a lot of those days would warm up later in the day and the snow would end up fine anyways. And so it was a win-win-win for me to spend 10 minutes asking people that were leaving the hill to try and get their tickets. Now, the reason that I share this with you is if I was a big corporation or if I was an adult trying this method, it probably wouldn't have gone over very well. As a matter of fact, there's no way to really scale this method to get lots of ski passes. Well, maybe if I hired a bunch of buddies to do the same thing. But my point is, this was something that because I was young, because I was a small fish, I could use to my advantage. And in this video, I'm gonna explain to you, first of all, the amount of money that you need to buy a rental property, which is substantially less than you think, but I'm also gonna show you how to leverage the place that you're in to get an extremely good deal on this rental property purely because of your situation. So now that we've covered that, let's jump right into explaining that, and I'm going to tell you what I would do if I was you in your situation to propel you to the next level. First off, we've got to get a couple misconceptions out of the way. If you're wanting to buy a rental property in cash, this video is not for you. And the reason is, first of all, that's a very stupid way to buy a rental property because you're gonna have to save forever. And if you're a small fish, it's almost impossible to get any momentum going to build any form of real estate portfolio because money's hard to come by. I get that. You work hard for your money, and saving up $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to be able to buy a rental property can take years and years and years. And honestly, your returns are gonna be substantially lower on that rental property if you're not leveraging it by getting a loan from the bank. So first off, you need to understand that getting a loan from the bank is essential. Second off, for all of you Dave Ramsey people out there that are saying, oh, I wanna buy it in cash, but if I don't buy it cash, I've got to at least put 25% down or more, that is incorrect. Because one of the massive advantages that you have as a new real estate investor or a new home buyer is the fact that you can get access to an FHA loan or just to a conventional loan where you can put 5% down, or if you get that FHA loan, 3.5% down on a property. Now, a lot of people are scared saying, Chandler, I'm way over leveraged. That scares me. That makes me nervous. Well, here's the deal. You're dealing with a 30-year fixed loan. So as long as you get proper reserves and you buy a good rental property that you know is going to cash flow, then I'm telling you this is a smart move. And if you don't trust me, please go watch my other videos. You need to understand that leverage is good and it is a tool if used properly. So to answer the big question, how much money do I need? Well, that depends on what rental property you're buying, but you should only need 3.5% as your down payment. Now, the next rule I need to teach you so that you don't over leverage is you need to keep reserves. Now, some people like less, some people like more. My rule has and always will be a minimum of 6 months reserves. Now, what all does that include? Well, when you're buying a rental property, 6 months reserves should at least cover 6 months of your mortgages and any other expenses that you have on the property. So if you've got taxes, if you've got insurance, if you've got your mortgage, which you should have, you need to do the math on that. Oh, and any mortgage insurance, because if you're putting a lower down payment, you're also gonna have mortgage insurance on top of your actual mortgage. You need to figure out all of these monthly expenses, and then you need to be in a place where after your down payment, you can afford to live for 6 months with all of those things and your personal living expenses. Now, for those of you that are saying, Chandler, that's so much in savings. Well, we've got people on both sides of the spectrum. We've got the guy over here that says, oh, I need to buy it in all cash. And then we've got the guy that's saying,
oh, Chandler, I don't want to have that set away in reserves.
Well, here, if you want to do it smart and you want to protect yourself, hold to my rules and make sure that you get 6 months reserves of all of those things. So I'm gonna put the list up here. I'm gonna go through them one more time, but you need to have your mortgage. You need to have any mortgage insurance. You need to have any insurance and taxes that are coming on the property and any personal expenses, because again, you should have 6 months reserves just for your own living situation if you're playing it safe. So those are my rules for figuring out how much property you can afford. And if you're saying, Chandler, I don't know how to run the numbers on those. Well, first off, you can go and talk to a loan officer and he's gonna answer all of those questions for you. However, I'm gonna give you some very basic numbers. Now, I'm gonna give you a quick example on how to figure out your reserves just so that you understand how things work. So let's say that you say, you know what, Chandler, I think I can afford a $100,000 property. And I'm gonna keep it small. I know a $100,000 property doesn't exist these days in most markets, but it'll help you do the math so that you can just multiply it by however many hundreds of thousands worth your property is that you end up purchasing. So for a $100,000 property, you're going to need 3.5% down. That's gonna be $3,500. You're also going to need closing costs, and we're gonna say that that's just a flat 2%. It should be less than that, but that's gonna put you at $5,500 for your down payment and any closing costs. Now, if you're smart, you'll negotiate your closing costs away, but we're gonna say that you still have to cover them because I want this to be simple and you might not negotiate them away. So try and get that negotiated away. It's where you can say, no, I want the closing costs covered, all of them by the seller. But if that doesn't happen, $5,500. So we're gonna put $5,500 up here. Now let's talk about your mortgage. So for $100,000, let's say you get a 2.5% interest rate on this loan, you're gonna have about a $400 a month payment. Now I'm totally ballparking these numbers, but that's $400 a month. We're just gonna multiply that by 6, and that gives you $2,400. Next, let's say your taxes and insurance for the year add up to $3,000 for this $100,000 property. So you're gonna say $1,500 for the next 6 months, you're gonna add that up. Now, when it comes to your mortgage insurance, we're gonna totally ballpark and say this is an additional $100 a month. That might be high, might be low. Talk to your loan officer and get that pegged, but we're gonna throw in an additional $600. Now, I don't know what everyone needs to live, so this could be high, this could be low, but let's say that you need $1,000 a month to live. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are saying, Chandler, that's not gonna cover my rent. Well, here's the deal. And this kind of transitions into the next rule, which we're gonna talk about in a minute, but that is on your first rental property, you are dumb if you are not buying a property that you're going to live in, because you need to live in that property to get the 5% down or the 3.5% down. So you shouldn't have rent because you already included that in your mortgage. So if we add all of those up, that's $2,400, $600, $1,500, and then the $1,000 you need to survive every month, which ends up being $6,000. So we've got $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. This math is complicated.
1 hour later.
All right, we worked out the math. $10,500 is what I would keep in reserves if I was going to buy a $100,000 property. Now that seems like a lot, and you're like, oh, what if I want to buy a $500,000 property? Well, here's the deal. There are a lot more expenses that are going to come, but it shouldn't affect you that much because, again, your living expenses hopefully aren't going up, and that was the biggest chunk of this. So you can do the math for your own property, but I would set aside 6 months reserves. Now, if you're someone that's like, Chandler, I don't need that kind of reserves for my own living expenses, please don't go lower than 6 months reserves, at least for your mortgage, your taxes, your insurance for the property, so that you're not floating it. If you talk to my good buddy Garrett Myers, he would say you can do it with only 3 months, and he likes to kind of push the needle. He's helped lots of guys get into properties early, and that's awesome. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. However, if you want to sleep at night and be very comfortable, set aside 6 months reserve. So if we add this all up, that means that you would need your $10,500 set aside. Then you would also need your $5,500 set aside, which ends up putting you at $16,000 to be able to get into a $100,000 rental property. So for those of you that clicked on the video to know how much you need, that's what you would need to be able to buy your first rental property if it's $100,000. What you can now do is just kind of duplicate that, because all of these numbers are numbers that you can expand based on how much of a rental property you want to purchase. So let's do the math really quick for a $500,000 rental property. All right, and I've got James, my handy assistant, that's gonna run us through the numbers. So first off, your $6,000 should not change. I'm hoping you can still live on $6,000 a month. The next one is the $2,400, and that was for your mortgage. So James, can you multiply that by 5? $12,000, okay? And 600 times 5, 3,000. That's actually easy math. I really should have been able to do that. And then 1,500 times 5, 7,500. So that's 28,500 in reserves plus our down payment. And for that, we're just gonna do 5% of the total 500,000, which would be an additional $25,000. So 25,000 plus 28,500 ends up putting us at $53,500. Guys, this is at the end of a very long day, but I promise you I'm better at math than I'm showing right here. And I'm gonna be honest, James, your help right now has not made me look like I know what I'm talking about. If someone has a hidden calculator right here, you can show them the calculator. It should be coming off a little better than it is. So if you want to buy $500,000 worth of rental real estate, you should have about $50,000. Now, this leads into my next piece of advice, and that is that for your first rental property, wherever possible, you should always try to get as many units as possible. And here's why. We just ran through these numbers, but if you need to come up with 25% down instead of 3.5% down, you can see how these numbers are going to be astronomically higher. Because if you were wanting to buy a $500,000 property, let's say it's a $500,000 fourplex, and you want to purchase it, you take your $25,000 times 5, that's $125,000 that you need just for the down payment. Now, you're still going to have a lot of those other expenses because it doesn't really change your mortgage that much to put 25% down in comparison to 3.5 or 5% down. Now, it's still gonna change it, but not that much. And just that down payment alone is way more, $125,000 just for your down payment compared to $50,000 total to to be able to get into this rental property. And so that's why my biggest piece of advice for you is, first of all, make sure you have reserves, but more importantly, make sure that you are getting into a rental property with multiple units, because now you've eliminated your living expense because it's part of your mortgage. You're living for free, and you're going to be cash flowing every single month off of this rental property. So now not only are you living for free, but you're making money. And so you can use that cash flow to help you make those payments. And that's why a lot of people say, you don't need 6 months reserves, especially if you've got a 4-unit property. However, this hopefully gives you an idea of the numbers that you need to play it extremely safe and protect yourself and get into a killer rental property. So I hope these numbers with my mediocre math helped you figure that out. The last thing that I wanted to hit on is what my strategy would be if I was you. Let's say I don't have any rental real estate and I'm in a place where I really want to grow as fast as I can and get to the point where I've got lots of rental real estate. My strategy would be this. I understand that it's overwhelming to say, oh man, I need this much money to be able to get into a rental property. $50,000 seems like a lot, but I'm telling you, if you're smart, if you save, if you set it aside, buying that rental property, buying that first fourplex can set you up for years and years and years to come. And it's exponential, because if that fourplex ends up cash flowing, then what I would do is, after you've lived in the property for a year, jump into another rental property, another fourplex, live in one of the units again, and do the same strategy again. Now, you're not going to be able to use an FHA loan. However, you can still get into a property for 5% down that next year and really blow up your rental real estate portfolio. So here would be my strategy. First off, I would save and I would try and get into a fourplex. Now, if you can only find a triplex or a duplex, do it, but I would not do a single family home first, because then you're not going to be able to rent part of it and not going to be able to really live for free. You're going to have to spend that first year with a 3.5% down just paying a mortgage, because no one else is going to be paying it. Now, if you can get into a home and rent it out by the room, then that might be advantageous for you. But my advice would be, for your first rental, try and get into a multifamily property, preferably a fourplex, because you can maximize the amount of units that you can purchase and cash flow that you can get your hands on with a substantially lower down payment. Live in it for a year, rent out the other units. The next year, do it again. The next year, do it again. The next year, do it again. And scale like that, because then you're going to need a lot less money to get going. Because again, if you need $125,000 just for a down payment, let's say maybe $150,000 total to cover your reserves and everything else that you're going to need, now you're in a place where it's going to take a long time to come up with $150,000. You could have bought 3 other properties year after year after year in the time that maybe it takes to just save up to get a down payment for a rental property. And here's the other bummer. If you're saving and saving and saving to put 25% down or to buy it in cash, the real estate market is just going like this every single year. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and harder to acquire a piece of real estate, especially if you're going to buy it cash. So please follow this strategy. I truly believe if you do it at the beginning, it's going to feel very overwhelming. It's going to feel like a lot to bite off. You're going to be questioning yourself, but it's very exponential. And a lot of times we're saying, 5 years is a long ways down the road. I don't know if it's worth it to get into real estate. I don't know if it's worth it to, live in a unit and another unit and another unit and, move every year for 3 years in a row. But once you own 12 units of rental real estate, because you've been able to go out and buy 3 different fourplexes and scale to the point where you're cash flowing like crazy, where you now own $1.5 million worth of real estate with very low down payments, and those properties are going up in value. They're getting principal pay down because the tenants are paying the mortgage for you and you're getting cash flow. You can put yourself in a place where you actually have a very impressive rental portfolio by just being smart and leveraging the fact that you are a small fish. If you do this, you can put yourself in a place where 5-10 years down the road, you have a massive portfolio of real estate. You're cash flowing like crazy, and you're so grateful that you used the proper strategy to get here. Now, for me, I was very blessed to have a job that gave me a good income where I could put 25% down early on, but it was one of the biggest mistakes I made. If I would have lived in the unit and bought fourplex after fourplex after fourplex early on, I could have used my money so much better. And back then, you could buy a rental property for $100,000 and you could get into it for way lower than you can today. And I didn't take advantage of that, so my money didn't go as far. Another thing that I've learned is your growth is really exponential. And so you want to get investing as soon as possible. So the last piece of advice I would give you, if you've got to play on a duplex and you can afford it now, but you're not going to be able to afford a fourplex for another 2 years, and you find a good duplex with good numbers, might be worth it to use this strategy and get into it so that you can get that momentum moving. Now, I'm hoping this advice helps you to jump into your first rental property. If you've got any questions, make sure you hit me up in the comments because I really do want to help you get there. Now, if you're in a place where you're saying, Chandler, I want to buy that first rental property, I've got the money, I'm ready to roll, or I'm saving and I want to be ready to roll this year, but I don't really know what to do next. I don't know how to analyze rental properties. I don't know how to go through that process. Make sure you remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell so you can catch all of my videos that walk you through the process. Or if you like the way that I've explained things today and you're convinced that you're gonna start investing in real estate and you wanna dive into a step-by-step process on how to do it, you can click the link down in the description and snag my real estate investing course. Right now, you can pick it up for only $250 by using the code down there, and this price is jumping up to $500 at the end of this month because I'm revamping and re-releasing the course with a ton of new content. So if you're thinking about picking up the course or starting to invest in real estate, now is the time to snag that course. The members have had an incredible experience using it to buy lots of rental real estate, and I've loved that positive feedback, but I knew there was more we could add to the course. And right now you can get it at the lower price, but you're going to get the bigger, more advanced, more refined course with everything that we're adding, even though you're only paying the lower price. So you can pick that up in the description. And again, if you enjoyed the video, remember to smash the like button, and we'll see you in the future videos. Thanks, guys.